Hi, Leah. Thank you for joining us. So my first question for you will be, were you raised in the Christian faith? Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yes, I was raised in church. I wouldn't say it was a Christian faith, but I was raised in the Methodist Church. My parents were not necessarily Christians when I was little, but we went to church every Sunday. I did not become a Christian until I was in high school. I didn't surrender my life to Jesus until then. And my parents, it's just me and my sister. So they raised us in church, but they weren't following the Lord until I went off to college when they surrendered their lives to Jesus.
Okay. Are you still in a Methodist church, or are you attending another church?
I'm Now we're at a non-denominational church. My family goes to a non-denominational church.
Okay. Because once I went to a Methodist, when I first arrived in this country, I never heard of that before. So I went to a Methodist church and I was really surprised. I mean, there's a lot of, song and chanting and everything. So maybe it's also because it was San Francisco. But I mean, I think the pastor, the preacher didn't even open the Bible that day. He was talking about a lot of what's going on. And I'm like, this is the first time, I'm in church and they don't talk about Jesus really. So I don't know if it's for me, that's the way, the Methodist Church is, or is it because that was in San Francisco? I'm not really sure.
I think the Methodist Church is different throughout the United States.
Okay.
It depends on the pastor, just like any church. But I didn't really get to know Jesus as my Savior until I went to youth camp. And then I went to a Christian college, and that's when I really grew in my faith. The Methodist Church can be a lot of works based, like you're earning your salvation. But there are some great Methodist churches. So I'm not.
Oh no,
They're all different.
just a bit surprised.
Yeah.
So talking about Jesus and how you found Christ and your story, can you tell us about the dramatic events that took place over a 3-year span?
Yes. Well, it started in 2019 when my father had passed away. He died of a brain tumor. He was only sick for 8 months. And I took care of him during that time with my mom, helping her. And then shortly after he passed away, a few months after that, my mom was diagnosed with cancer, and she's still with us today, but she's still struggling through her treatments. And then in July of 2020, we had a complete house fire. We lost everything. I have 5 children. My oldest daughter, who's the second oldest, was home with the 3 younger ones, and she got them all out. I was not home. I was with my mom at an oncology appointment. So we lost everything. They didn't even have shoes on when they left the house that day. And then after that, my oldest son, who was 17 at the time, or no, he was 16 at the time, he started struggling with drugs and alcohol, and it just spiraled out of control after the fire. And he was in and out of rehabs for a couple of years, for 2 years. And then my one son has a heart defect. So in that whole midst of everything, he also had he had heart surgery, and he's doing great now, but the surgery didn't go as well as we planned during that time. And he was in the hospital for a month on top of dealing with the fire and my other son. And so that was all happened within 3-year span. And it's when I learned a lot about grief and trauma. God kind of took me on a journey through all of that with him. I had never experienced any type of grief or trauma in that way till then.
I can't even imagine, what you've been through with the fire and the kids being alone. Your daughter was what age when she put everybody out?
She was 14.
Okay.
The fire department here in our town actually gave her an award, which was really special. Because she got them out just before the house exploded. Like, my one son was running through the hall and the windows were breaking, and she got them right out. I'm like, it was the Lord. You just like look back and you're like, how did she react so quickly? The fire had been going on, we think, for an hour in the attic before she saw the flames billowing out. She saw them out through the window, and she just screamed for everyone to get out of the house. And they don't always listen. So she said my one son said, I just knew she was serious about getting us out.
Yeah.
Like, all listened, and the baby was 3, and she grabbed her out of her crib and had to run out with her. So yes, but
yeah, this is when you know that Jesus, is there with you and God exists, because there's no way. 5 kids, and they listened to her that day. They knew she was serious.
They knew she was serious. And my oldest son was at work that day. He was 16, so he was working. It was during the summer. It was July.
Yeah, I can even imagine. How's your son now? The one who had issue with...
Doing very well, very well.
Okay.
He was in 3 rehabs. And he, the third one, he actually relapsed after the third one. But it was like he decided that I don't want to live like this anymore. And he moved out of the house, which actually is a good thing, because it taught him a lot to move out of the house, and he has a dog and he has responsibilities, and he's been working for over a year, which is a huge thing. He works every weekend, making money, paying rent, and he's doing very well, and he's talking now about going back to school. So yes, it is that totally God too.
Yeah, they need to have goals, because if they are just not doing anything, that's purpose.
Yes.
Exactly.
Is he in church as well? Like, does he attend, or he's resisting?
That's the part we're still praying and working on. But when you walk through something like that with your child, you're just happy that they're healthy, because I was scared for his life every day during that time. Yes, but he has great purpose on his life, and I know that God is calling him back, and he'll come back to church one day.
When he's ready.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. Come back.
And during that time, like this time frame of all these things happening, is that when you started really looking like, I need to look at my faith and look for answers through Jesus and God? Was that during that time, or you waited a little bit to kind of like, wait a minute, why did all these things happen? Where was I? Where was my faith at that point? If it makes any sense, yeah.
Yeah, no, I understand. I had already had a strong relationship with the Lord. So how we read our Bibles and we spend time with God every day. And sometimes we don't know why we're doing it every day, but what we're doing is building a foundation. And I was able to lean on that foundation that I had built with the Lord for so long during that time. But I found that through the grief and the trauma, God was inviting me into learning about him more, like his care. I was learning more about different parts of who God was, because when you walk through something like that, you learn about God's character in a different way. Like, I was seeing him as totally my provider, and I was listening so intently to the Holy Spirit during the time my son was walking, through his drug addiction. So I was learning about God in a different way, but I had already built the foundation, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so, because in my family, my brother passed away very young, when he was 20 years old, 23, wow. And that was 20 years ago. And that for, my parents, for the whole family was, especially, it was so unexpected. And I remember that back then, we were like, we were not really going to church, or, just kind of like, oh yeah, we're Catholics, like praying, but like at home, but not really. Like, my parents are not like going frequently every Sunday. And then after that, I think that if it wasn't for their faith in God, and for like them like finding that as a rescue, or like a refuge, for them, I don't know how they would be now, especially my dad. And then all of a sudden he started going to church more frequently. He loved music, so he joined a band at church, and he would play instruments at the church during mass. And he totally renewed his connection, I think, with God that was lost for many, many years. He was trying different things and like kind of just let loose, and then he got that connection back. And it's still the same way after 20 years. He goes, like, he's there like every week. And yeah, it's important to see that how, when you don't believe in anything, like what do you do when you go through something traumatic like that, right? Which I wanted to ask you, what do you just say to someone who doesn't believe in God, or doesn't have any, or believes, or say they believe it, but they don't really do anything about it. They don't pray, they don't care that much. What did you tell someone that's going through a traumatic event and doesn't believe in God, or like how, like to heal, like to help them heal? Like how can we help someone like that?
What I've learned over the years is that there's usually something or someone that people want to live for. So if it's not God, then it's your children. So if, there were days even for me that I got up out of bed and got dressed, made the bed, got ready, left, because I knew that I had to be someone for my kids. And usually people, I find, hang on to that type of thing. Like, I need to be better for my kids. I need to be better for my husband. And then also, like, for themselves, like, I want to be a better person for myself. I honestly don't know how people get through life without Jesus, but that would probably be my best answer to you, is that they're leaning on something else, leaning on other people, really. Yeah. But I've learned, when you were talking about your dad, is that people either turn towards God or away from God during times of grief and trauma. And I see it with Christians too. Like, people get angry with God, which is fine, but people walk away from God too during those times. So it's like either they are leaning in or they're leaning back. And it's neat that your dad was able to re-find his faith again.
Yeah, that is really so true, because I do have an example of the opposite direction of someone I knew that was just so angry at everyone, even angry at other people who were like at the same age as her daughter at the time, being alive, and her daughter not being alive, and just being like, why my daughter, not this other person's daughter, and very angry for many, many years. It never really looked for God. So yeah, that's true. Good point about that.
Yeah, because when you were talking about that, it made me think about a friend of mine. She's, when you say, I don't know how people do without God. She wasn't really believing in anything. And then she's starting, asking a lot of questions about the Bible, Jesus, and everything. And so I was trying to, explain to her what it was about. And I'm like, are you interested? Do you want to, you want to try to believe in religion? And she just told me, yeah, I noticed that people who believe they look more happy. They look happier. Like we have. Because we have hope, right? We always, we always think there's always something after it's coming anyway. So she's like, yeah, you guys look more happy.
Wow. That's a testament.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
You wrote a book. Can you tell us about your book?
I can. It's called The Freedom to Feel, Finding God in the Midst of Grief and Trauma. And I wrote this book because I didn't want people to feel alone in their pain and their grief. I felt like there are many books out there for people that have lost people in their lives, like spouses or children, but there wasn't many books out there that navigated through things like a fire or even addiction. And it's a different type of loss. I just became certified as a grief coach, and I learned so much during that time. But I had realized, like, it's just a different type of loss. There's no grave to go to. There's no closure in it. You're grieving someone that's still alive when you have someone that is dealing with addiction. You're grieving loss of dreams. You have these dreams for your children. I thought he was going to go off to college and follow this plan, and he went the opposite way, and he wasn't following the Lord, and I didn't know if he was going to be alive or dead the next day. And I felt like I needed to write a book for other moms and parents that have experienced something like that. And then also the fire. I felt like a lot of people didn't know how to comfort us. They did it as well as they could. Because people would say things like, at least you didn't lose your children, or which is true, but we lost 20 years of our lives. That's how long my husband and I had been married. We lost everything, and you don't always think of those things like Christmas decorations. I had no Christmas decoration, nothing. And you're navigating buying all new things for the children, and all the things that that comfy sweatshirt that you want to put on at night, it's gone. And you're stripped of, you feel so vulnerable too. Like you're just stripped of not your peace, because that comes from God, but you just feel vulnerable. Like you don't have that place that you just go to and can exhale and relax like you do at your own home. So I wrote this book for people in grief and trauma that have experienced like unpredictable loss. And I wrote it and I have a few chapters on how we can be better as a community to comfort those people.
Yeah, especially moms that we have like you with 5 children. So I can imagine like managing your issue with your son with addiction, and then also having to raise the other 4 children, right? So
Right.
what would you tell a mom? Like how would you advise her to manage or try to manage both things, like trauma or grief, dealing with trauma and grief, and also raising the other kids?
Lots of self-care.
Yeah, right.
I trimmed out everything out of my schedule during that time that I could. I stopped writing, I stopped speaking during that time, and I focused completely on the kids and myself and my husband. My husband's an OBGYN, so he has a very unpredictable job, and I felt like the Lord told me to be the stability to the children. So I was their constant, and I had to trim out I didn't volunteer at the church during that time. I just was focused on them and getting them through that time. But then you also have to take care of yourself. So I started going to counseling regularly. I found a really good counselor for my daughter, and then my son too, at that time he was kind of resistant to going to counseling. And then I know that's like really hard as Christians, but you also it's okay to have to take medications during that time too. I took an antidepressant during that time and an anti-anxiety medicine. And what I do have to say about medicine is that it's not a crutch that we stay on forever. It's something to get you through that time. So I did that too. So those are the things that I would say that I put in place during that time.
Yeah. Priorities, right? You need to see what is, or you need to focus on, and whatever it is that can be taken care of later, you do it later.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you get a lot of help from your community when all of this happened?
We did. Our community was incredible during that time. I had meals delivered to our rental house for a month. We had so many clothes dropped off that I had to write on Facebook, like, please don't drop any more clothes off. They supplied so much, like paper products, snacks. The kids were just they were going to be starting school. It was like 2 weeks after the fire. It was 2 weeks till they started school. So they helped with school supplies and uniforms for the children. My son, plays football. He lost his helmet and his pads, and people came and they brought him. They would pick him up and take him to get his pads and his helmet fitted. And yes, we had a lot of help. And what I can say for people that want to help others is just do it. Like, I was so thankful. Like, it's hard when you text someone that's in grief, like, text me if you need me, or let me know what you need, because
you don't know what to say either, right? There's that. Like, what is the right thing to say?
Yeah, your mind is just like so bogged down with everything that you don't even know. So I was so thankful for the people that just went ahead and did things.
So since you work with, like, you're a grief coach, what do you do? Like, I'm sure, like, if you have a full day of sessions with people that are telling you all their stories, and very heavy stories, like, very, right? Like, how do you handle that after you have a busy day of just listening to people telling their tragedies and things like that? How do you release from all that? I think I would feel like, oh my God, I need to decharge, like, to do something to, like, change my mood and be on, like, a better vibration. I don't know.
I would say I had to learn. I was doing things all the way up until I had to go get the children. So, like, then I would like, I wasn't decompressing before I got them. I was working all the way up until 3 o'clock or whatever. So I've learned, like, I need to take a walk. Walking is really good for me, to go outside and take a walk or do some kind of exercise, get outside, even preparing dinner, like, just doing something that's kind of mindless. Yeah, it is heavy.
Yeah.
It is heavy. And that's what my husband, he's always checking to make sure I'm okay, because there's a lot of loss, really heavy loss.
And you hear all that story. I'm sure it can stay, if you don't know how to separate well from all that. You can, like, get totally immersed in it. So, yeah, I'm glad you do something to make sure you keep your distance.
Definitely. And so I'm sure you've learned a lot with everything that happened to you. So what do you think it's important that you need to pay attention, to your feelings, and with everything that happened to you over the years? What would you tell to people? You need to pay attention to your own feelings. Why is that important?
How to get in touch with your own feelings? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Okay. The one thing I would say is journaling and keeping, like, a notepad or a journal with you. I know this is very difficult to think about doing when you're in, but it's the way you can pay attention to your feelings, is writing it down. So if you're starting, like a lot of times anger can come out in grief. So you can even write, like, at 3 o'clock, I felt angry. And then going back to that later that night or the next day, and kind of peeling the onion back and looking at, okay, why did I feel angry? What was I thinking about? What memory triggered that anger or that sadness? But what we as I would even say Christians often do is we just want to just be happy or joyful. We think joyful and happy are the same things. Like, we have the smile on our face all the time. So we end up stuffing feelings and we don't pay attention to them. We either are scrolling, we can scroll on our phones to avoid them, or we watch Netflix to numb them. We're drinking more than we should, and we want to numb them because culture tells us that we need to keep going rather than feeling them. But grief lives in our bodies and it has to be felt. So learning to pay attention to how you feel in the moments during the day. So keeping a notepad is the best way to do that. I know it's very difficult. Or on your phone, you can write it on your phone. Like, right now, I felt angry, or I felt sad, or to even have times during the day, planned times to feel those feelings, and allowing yourself to release them to God. So as you're feeling them and you're sad or you're angry, you can release them to God. But journaling is the best thing, I think.
Yeah, I think it's very important to acknowledge, your grief, because, like you said, we've been raised to not to dwell on, on all our emotions, not to think about what's going on too much and always being positive. But yeah, sometimes you just have to acknowledge you're angry and you're not well, and then you can move on. And like you say, most of the time, like I do that too. I put that everything to God and then say, God, this is now, you have to take care of this. So I'm releasing that to you, and you can help me, heal or deal with this, because I cannot do it alone. I can't. It's too much.
Mm-hmm.
So journaling, yeah. Do you do that every day? Because that's not easy to do every day. I start and after I stop and then I start again.
But I would say pretty often when I was going through a lot. Yeah. Yeah. So I can tell you a story about my husband with grief that has to do with what we were talking about. But his dad died when he was 21 years old. We had just gotten married. We were married for 2 years, and he was going to med school that next month after his dad passed away. And I never saw him cry except one time. It was like his dad never died. And he kept continuing on with schooling and then working. But over the years, I saw him get angrier and angrier and angrier. And he would be real short with the kids, real short with me, his stress level. And we kept trying to figure out why. We were, you try to put boundaries up. You try to, more rest, more vacation, more, but then, his dad's, and this is like 20 years later, they had a 20-year anniversary of his dad's death with his siblings and his mom, and they went to the gravesite, and for the first time he grieved his dad. He sat at the gravesite and cried, and for probably a week after that, I just saw him crying and talking about his dad and talking to the children about his dad, and because he wouldn't even really talk about him. And I saw a change in him. Like the anger was completely gone. He had like a different type of posture and peace. And so grief, like we hold on to it. We think that we can just move on, but we can't.
He's just putting under the rug. It's right. He's just accumulating, right? Yeah. So he probably just got to a point like, I can't take this anymore. Yeah. And just exploded, kind of a wow. Yeah.
20 years. That's a long time to hold on to grief like this.
Yeah, and he didn't like he wasn't doing it like
consciously,
consciously. He was just he just thought he never had time to grieve. Like he was like, I need to go to med school, I need to go to residency, I need to provide for my family. Men just think that they can keep going.
Right.
But now we see these like older men that are angry. Like you don't know what they've been through, and they've been taught, especially that generation, that you don't have time to feel. When they came back from Vietnam and all that, they are like, there's no time for feelings, but it just lives in your body. Just lives in your body.
Yeah.
I actually have a friend who went through what you went through with the fire. It was with these roommates. I think my husband was there too. They were watching TV. There was a fire in the next room. They all jumped out the window. He lost everything. And they even forgot somebody was sleeping upstairs. So they thought it was like something happened to him. They called, of course, the fire department. And then the friend was there. He got out of the house. And that happened like 15 years ago, a long time ago, 15 years ago. They just arrived in the country. And we were talking about it maybe like 6 months ago. We were talking about it. He left the room. His wife was talking about it. She was like, yeah, remember when the fire happened? And my husband was there, so he was talking about it too. And he can't deal with it. It's been 15 years and he doesn't want to talk. So he left the room, and we're like, where is he going? So his wife followed him, and she came back. She's like, he doesn't want to talk about it. He still doesn't want to talk about it. And he told me, I don't want to hear the story again.
Yeah.
So make me think about your husband, when you said like, put it under the rug, maybe he needs to, I don't know if he needs to deal with it because Everybody was fine, nobody died, everything was fine. 15 years later, yeah, it's still fresh. I mean, there's no need to talk about it.
Yeah.
A bit traumatizing, so I completely understand.
Oh, I have one more question then before we go. So how do you help someone, because since you work with that, right, you're seeing people and you offer, what else do you offer? Do you offer coaching sessions and
I do.
One-on-one?
It's mostly one-on-one. It's a 12-week program that we go through. There's a workbook that we work through. And there's scheduled out certain journaling prompts and activities that we do, and it's an hour each week. And it's 12 weeks.
12 weeks. Okay, so you don't do any group sessions, or it's always just the one-on-one type of?
I haven't yet. I have some things in the works on doing that probably this fall. I had to get through the book and the book launch and then the 5 kids.
Yes.
That's good.
But so I want to do that. I do. I think it's important in doing group work too. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good way also to have someone who's going through the same thing, and it has a good dynamics when it's a group.
It's so comforting when you know other people that are going through similar things. So comforting.
Yeah, not alone.
Yeah, so what's the name of, I was going to ask, what's the name of your book? Because I don't think, did you say the name of your book? No, I don't think we.
I think I did, but it's called The Freedom to Feel, Finding God, Grief and Trauma. And I'm not sure when this will be aired, but it's in pre-orders right now on Amazon. It is officially out on June 25th.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's coming up now.
Congratulations. And if people want to contact you, where can they find you?
Lea Turner, leaturner.com is my website. And then I'm on Instagram and Facebook too, it's Lea J. Turner on Instagram.
Okay. We put all the information in the show notes anyway. Okay. So is there anything else you want to add that maybe we didn't ask? Thank you for sharing it, because that was I
can't think of anything. I'm sorry. I can't think of anything to add. I'm just praying that other people can experience more of God during their times of grief and trauma rather than pulling away. That has been my prayer, and that I would be able to help people to connect to God better through my book, my work.
Yeah, or blaming other people for our own problems too, right? That can be a big thing that definitely doesn't help us when we do that.
Yeah.
All right, it was great. I was worried about oh my God, I hope it's not going to be too heavy because you're talking about grief and trauma, but no, it's very comforting.
Yes,
Thank
you so much. Yes. Yes, I don't know. Well, if you see my book, the cover.
I saw it. Yeah, I love the color.
So colorful that it. I was trying to make. The sun's there, but I wanted it to be colorful and bright so that it's not so I didn't want it's heavy. It's a heavy topic, and I wanted people to feel hopeful when they saw my book.
Yes,
yeah. Yes.
They can see the light, there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Always we serve a God that redeems. So yes.
Yes. Amen.
Thank you so much.
Well,
thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, thank you very much. And I hope that people are gonna buy your book and contact you if they have issue with grief, because it looks like you can help them. You've been through a lot, so you have a lot of experience. Yeah, group session. I think group session also would be interesting. Like you said, people, they like to relate with other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Different types of griefs that we have, it could be divorce or addiction, things like that. So if anyone, for the listeners out there, if you know anyone who is struggling in different ways, you can send their info to them and listen to the episode and share the episode, because it's a good one. All right, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care. Talk to you next time. Bye. Thank you, Lea. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.